I want to talk about two rulings that came down this week, one from the Supreme Court and one from a federal judge in the little state of Rhode Island. And together they raise a question we don't ask enough. What happens when the government starts deciding who you are and whether you get to eat? Let's start with the Supreme Court. On Thursday, the justices allowed the admin to enforce a new rule on passports requiring people to list only the sex they were assigned at birth. No more X marker. No space for self-identification. This wasn't a final ruling, actually. It was an emergency stay, granted on the court's shadow docket in an unsigned order. And 3 justices dissented, but the policy takes effect immediately. And for a lot of people, this matters because a passport isn't just a travel document. It's a federal ID. It's recognition. It's the government putting in writing, this is who you are. So who gets to make that call? The person living the life or the state issuing the paper? Here in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. And now, the second ruling. Also on Thursday, a federal judge ordered the government to fully fund November's SNAP benefits. That's food assistance for over 40 million Americans that was hanging in the balance. Well, still is. Because during the shutdown, the admin had planned to distribute only about half, maybe 50 to 65%, using leftover contingency funds. But the court said no. Congress authorized this money, and under the law, the agency has to provide it in full, shutdown or not. So now we have 2 flashpoints, one about identity, one about survival, and both certainly about power. And this tension actually isn't new. In the 1970s, President Nixon tried to withhold money Congress had already approved for programs he didn't fully support. So Congress passed the Impoundment Control Act to rein that in. Because once lawmakers say, spend this, can a president just say, no? And when it comes to identity, we've seen this too. When the federal government used documents to sort people by race, gender, and citizenship, that was during World War II. The War Relocation Authority issued tags and records to Japanese Americans before sending them to camps. And the paper doesn't just reflect power. It can become a tool of that power. So, what should we be watching for right now? I would say watch the courts and how they handle executive authority, especially on the emergency docket, where big changes can happen without full hearings. And watch how shutdowns are used, not just to save money, but to reshape programs that people rely on. Watch who gets recognized and who gets erased. Because here's the thing. If the government can tell you who you are and decide whether you get to eat, what else can it claim in the name of order? And where's the line that we won't let it cross? And are we watching closely enough to know when it already has crossed that line?